this significance. It enables the minister may, for any entity set out in these financial estimates, for any entity, except for entities associated with what are called statutory expenses. And if anybody's unsure as to what that means, can I refer them to page Roman 15 of the estimates themselves? At the front, in the introduction, those terms is clear. It means that for statutory expenditures, you cannot modify them. They do not come here for approval. Statutory expenditure does not apply to anything else in the estimates. Debt, for example, and a number of the items passed under the Ministry of Finance cannot be modified. And if you go to the back of the estimates, part 4, you will see them set out in greater detail. Those areas we cannot modify. So when the Attorney General, the Honorable Attorney General, speaks to the capacity of this House to modify anything, he must not conclude statutory expenditures with other expenditures, because budgetary agencies are subject to the following. Receives the submission of a budgetary agency. He and his officers may modify them in accordance with any criteria set by he or his cabinet. He may modify them. When the monies have been approved, he may also not disburse them. He may also not disburse them depending upon his estimate or his view of exigencies. So he need not disburse the monies although they have been approved. That cannot be consistent with an article that says these agencies are supposed to be a direct charge on the consolidated fund determined as a lump sum, blah, 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 after review and approval of the entity's annual budget as part of the process of determination. So, in the third category, I don't know having the next paragraph. Nobody is speaking the next paragraph. When we were doing the motion, Mr. Speaker, just to remind the distinguished minister, I made a reference to that because you, Mr. Speaker, asked, can the agency then submit any amount it wants, spend it as it likes, and is not accountable to anybody? We'll have to go to the next paragraph. The next paragraph is clear. We are not seeking to amend it, so there's no need to discuss it. I'm talking about the consequence of not making proper provision for constitutional agencies, which stands between statutory bodies, statutory expenditures that can't be touched, and expenditures that are classed as budget agencies. In between the two, you have a category. This House has to approve the requests of the judiciary and the others. That is what the Constitution says. We must, therefore, allow a process whereby the request is made, the House itself sees the request, approves the request or modifies it, and then when it has approved it, the agency must know these are the amounts they're going to get, and nobody can change it. And it will be a lump sum, a single sum determined by this House. That is all that this Act seeks to establish, Mr. Speaker. So let us not be confused, let us not be misled, let us not be told that it is doing anything other than that. Constitutionally, we are required to deal and make provision for a special category. The current arrangements do not make such provision. We are calling upon the House to do what the minister was instructed to do by the motions we passed last year. We would not have had any need to come back to this and waste the House time tonight if he got his job. That official will have the responsibility for ensuring that estimates are prepared. Well, that is normal, but now you remove the responsibility from it if it were under the office of the President or before. And that official has the responsibility of transmitting the request for funding through the National Assembly. It comes therefore directly to the National Assembly rather than via ministries, because these entities are not supervised. These are statutory, these are constitutional agencies, and therefore they report directly to the House. Their estimates come to the House. the House considers those estimates along with advice from the Minister of Finance, who would receive at the same time a copy of the request, and the House would consider the recommendations of the Minister of Finance, and as required by the legislation, which specifically says that the House will consider the matter. These we will ensure that the National Assembly I don't know why men are getting so excited, Mr. Speaker, because the Constitution is being subverted, and we are only ready to 222A says specifically for 10 years the Constitution has been undermined. Okay? 10 years. And yet you are here to tell the story. So I couldn't damage you that much. Mr. Speaker, the requirement is that the annual subvention approved by the National Assembly after review. So it comes to the National Assembly specifically for review and approval, and then is incorporated in the national budget. It is, if you like, a modification of the existing process so that it comes to us know what the request is. The channel by which the information arrives. It then sets out where it is reflected in the estimates. In other words, in the estimates, instead of the estimates which currently are prepared at the moment. The estimates are currently, Dr. Singh, if you have complaints about it, you can tell me. Dr. Harman doesn't I think, want to take that exercise on. I can look after myself. The estimates, as you see them right now, agencies, a whole number of pages with the elements of the budget set out here. Ministry of Finance. What we are saying is that there should be reflected, not, for example, in the current estimates, GCOM, for example, paid 70 plus Parliament Office, blah blah blah, Teaching Service Commission, but that they be shown as is the ERC. If you look in that part of the table that deals with details of subsidies and contributions to local organizations, there is a single. That is what we will approve after consideration of the details. If you look at the back of the estimates, you will see statutory expenditures, and in the case of these agencies, section 4 at the back of the estimates, you will see statutory agencies, and in future, these constitutional bodies will go at the back alongside those to be treated in a manner similar to constitutional agencies. Not exactly the same because they can, statutory expenditures, because they can be modified by us. So that is the intention, and I think all the other details are really quite self-evident. I would like to make reference to one other element. Section in section 81, the recommendation here is that they also be specific statutory expenditure, as with the statutory bodies, to submit annual report and audited financial statements under section 80, and instead of the concerned minister being identified here, it will be the official who is charged with overseeing the constitutional agency. So these are elements of tidiness. Finally, may I say that if you have a look at section 85A of the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, you will see reference to the question of public officials who may cause loss or inappropriately spend resources under their control. Originally, officials could be surcharged or fined for such behavior. The definition of official has, however, been modified since 2003 to exclude ministers. We are proposing here that ministers be reincorporated into that arrangement so that official is being redefined to include ministers. And that I think is only right, because if you are saying that if an official spends money illegally or loses the state's resources, causes it to be lost, then that official is subject to being fined and jailed. You have under the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act a very powerful instrument which allows the minister to act public official, and what we're saying here is that he should be liable for his own actions as well. It cannot be fair for public officials to take instructions to do something illegal and only they will be subject to the law. So what we're saying here is that ministers are not above the law, and in a time when we are concerned about the question of financial probity, it is proper, it is only fitting and proper that they be captured. It was there before. Thank you. Thank you very much. The Constitution sets out the framework. In the case of the ERC, for example, only half the framework is in place. The ERC has a block vote. There are many entities which are not constitutional agencies, but we give them block votes. And they are the block votes, the Constitution requires the House to review and determine how much they get. And that is what I'm trying to ensure happens, Mr. Speaker. So it is in keeping with our Constitution. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, let me just remind you, since you have an interest in this matter, when the motion came to the House, you, in a number of questions which have become, I think, your hallmark, asked whether the arrangements in place elsewhere, because I had mentioned the United States, I don't know what you recall, and I remember saying to you that in the case of the judiciary of the US, the request for monies goes directly to the judiciary to the president. Is not allowed to amend it. He simply transmits it to the House. And the House then discusses and approves a sum. When that sum is approved, it has to be disbursed by the Treasury. The President and his Secretary of State cannot amend it after it will have been approved. In this particular case, the Constitution is very specific. It says that these agencies and the money they receive are to be approved by the House, the legislature. That is what it says here. It says nothing of the sort.